Hello, this is Annie Chapman. Some of you may know me that I'm a part of the singing group Steve Annie Chapman that we've been singing for the last, I think we figured 45 years or so. But I wanted to just give you a little story about what I've been going through this past year. Some of you have asked if I would actually do this, and we'll just give it a try and see if it makes sense. My husband and I have sung together all these years, and with our kids from college to college, traveled. And in May of 2018, in a typical weekend, we were singing in Baltimore, Maryland, and Steve had spoken at a wild game dinner, and I was supposed to speak at a ladies' tea the next morning. And so for months I had been preparing for that, just really wondering what I should be sharing with those ladies. Came to the conclusion, just felt directed and guided. And for those of you who understand a walk with Christ, that probably doesn't sound so strange. But I felt guided to a psalm that I'd really never paid any attention to, Psalm 90. Written by Moses about and it was referred to the death of his brother and sister Aaron and Miriam, and kind of a dark chapter actually about impending death, and so. But I felt like that was what I was supposed to do, so I read it, and he really did talk about how grass grows up and then the sun comes out and it's withered, and how our days are numbered, and we may have 70 years, 80 if we're strong. And as I just kept reading it thinking, well, this is not a happy chapter. And then verse 12, it said, teach us to number our days aright, that I may gain a heart of wisdom. And I just chewed on that for literally months, almost daily, just thinking about, teach me to number my days. I thought, what am I supposed to say to these ladies? But I just felt convinced that that's what I was supposed to do. And so as I studied and pondered that, I was coming up on the time to go to Maryland to present this, and on a Monday night, still really not getting much except numbering your days. And I thought, well, I did that. 365 times 70 years is 25,500. I've been alive 66 of those plus, and I subtracted out, I got 1,100 days left, and I thought, well, this is nothing to present to people. But then while I was sleeping, I believe the Lord, the God of creation, spoke to me, and in that God whisper, and basically said, you're looking at the wrong word. Because I kept thinking, numbering my days, literally numbering them. And he said, look at the word aright. And the next morning when I woke up, I put me on a quest of, teach me to number my days aright, and what does that mean? And so I came up with a thing for the ladies, numbering our days aright means living each day, loving unconditionally, and living each day serving joyfully, and living each day forgiving quickly. And but I didn't feel like that this message was like telling me of an impending doom. I just felt like this is what I was supposed to share for these ladies. And so that's what I did. I presented that. The next day we sang, and I got to know this young lady who was a part of the planning, and I hugged her as we were going up to do the Sunday morning thing, and I felt heat coming from her face. And I looked at her face, and her face was red, and I said, what's with your face being so red? Oh, it's my blood pressure. She said, it happens when I eat sugar. And so I said, don't leave till I talk to you afterwards. So little did I know what a part of this journey was going to be for me. So after the service, I said, you have a problem with sugar, and I need to get off of sugar. What if for the next 30 days we don't eat any sugar? I'll do it with you. Just kind of as a fluke. And we came on that and decided to do it. And so didn't think much about it, except I'm off of sugar for 30 days. A couple of weeks later, went on my doctor's appointment, regular appointment, did some blood work. The doctor asked me, how do you assess your health? And I said, I am stout as an ox. And I said that because for the last 18 months, I took it upon myself to paint every wall in our house, all the ceilings, empty out closets, spackle, paint closets, purge. I mean, I'd been doing it for 18 months just because I wanted to. Up and down ladders, up and down ladders. I was strong as an ox. And so that's when he said, how do you assess your health? Well, that's how I did, because that's how I felt. A week later, got my blood work back and found out I was not as strong as I thought I was. Bad blood report for diabetes, pre-diabetes. Very upsetting to me because I never dreamed that would ever be a part. I thought nothing could be worse than that. And so I went to the pharmacist to get the little machines, and he told me that, well, don't take this so seriously, because I was very shaken, upset about it. He said, I have patients that just go ahead and get diabetes, they get a foot amputated, and they get to go on disability. Well, I was horrified at that. And when the lady called from the American Diabetes Association, I told her what he had said, expecting her to say, what is his name? That's malpractice. He should never be working with patients. And she basically said, well, I hate to tell you, but that is kind of true. And at your age, you will get diabetes eventually. You know, you might do a few things to forestall it, but it's kind of what's going to happen. And boy, that made me mad. And so I went on a quest to not get diabetes. And so I went online, but I used as my guide of how to deal with this bad news. Isaiah 11 talks about the Spirit of the Lord, and it lists the Spirit of knowledge, the Spirit of understanding, the Spirit of wisdom, the Spirit of power, the Spirit of counsel, and the Spirit of the fear of the Lord. And I took on this journey of to avoid diabetes in the Spirit of the Lord. I said, the Spirit of knowledge, what I should do. The Spirit of understanding, why I should do it. The Spirit of wisdom, the willingness to do it. The Spirit of counsel, the encouragement to do it. The Spirit of might, the strength to do it. And then the Spirit of the fear of the Lord. What will happen if I don't? And so that's where I took that on. That's what I was going to do. I went on YouTube. When I figured out I am not listening to the American Diabetes Association because I don't trust them. I'm not listening to the pharmacist. I'm going to find my own way. And so I went on YouTube. You can find anything on there, good or bad. And kind of came on the keto diet. Decided to cut carbs and sugar. I'd already been off of sugar. I thought I was going off of sugar to help that lady in Baltimore. Little did I know that would be the last sugar I would eat. 15 months later, I'm still off of it. But so that summer, everything was about don't get diabetes and eliminate the carbs and eliminate the sugar. And then I had a friend that I'd met because she's a diabetic, and we kind of bonded on trying to work things out. She said, I went and had a heart scan at the medical center, $71, looks at your heart. She said, I got a great report. And I thought, I need a good report. I've been so obsessed with this, trying to not get diabetes and get my sugar and everything all good. I said, I need a good one. I had no problems with my heart. I went and had that test done and found out that I had 60% chance of heart attack or stroke. My arteries were 15 years older than they should be, and I had an aortic aneurysm at the top of my heart. It's like, how did that happen? I thought the worst thing that could ever happen was I would get diabetes, and now I've got this heart that is not very trustworthy. And so then what do I do with that? That was in September, and started taking my baby aspirin and my different things, trying to help my heart, and went back to the doctor in December. Lost 30 pounds and walked hundreds of miles. All this getting myself, trying to keep that diabetes at bay. And he said, I want you to have an ultrasound on your heart because of that aneurysm. And I want you to have that because we need to look at that. And I said, well, what do you think? This was in December, right before New Year's. And I said, well, you thinking like April or May? And he goes, I'm thinking tomorrow. It's like, oh, okay. So on New Year's Eve, I went and had a CAT scan, and the technician doing the thing said, I'm going to call this in stat to your doctor. I go, you are so nice. I mean, this is New Year's Eve and you're going to call this in? He said, yeah, I am. And I think your doctor's going to call you this afternoon. And it's like, wow, you guys are so on it. I am so impressed that even on New Year's Eve that you would be so conscientious. Well, I must live by a river in Egypt, because I sure didn't understand what he was trying to tell me, that he had seen something. But that afternoon, the doctor did call me, and he said, I hate to ruin your holiday, but the technician saw a cancer on your kidney. So I've gone from nothing could be worse than diabetes to an aneurysm on my aorta, pretty bad, to kidney cancer. I mean, I felt just gut punched every which way. And I just didn't know what was happening. And of course, then my mind goes back. I could never say God blindsided me. For months, I had been reading Psalm 90 about your days are short, number your days aright. You're like the grass of the field. You spring up in the morning, by evening you're withered. It was like a picture of life. And it said that 1,000 years in this, a day, 1,000 years in the sight of the Lord is like a day, or watching the night, 3 or 4 hours. You know, I put so much stock in these years that God's given me. But in all reality, if I live to be 100, it's nothing but a blink. It's so fast. As few or many years as I have. When I was reading, studying these things, I came upon a saying that I think is so incredible. It said, for those who have put their trust in Jesus, death is the end of all sorrows. But for those who have never put their trust in Jesus, death is the end of all joys. And so it puts life in a real perspective. And so I kept going back, the spirit of knowledge, the spirit of understanding, the spirit of wisdom, the spirit of counsel, the spirit of might, the spirit of the fear of the Lord. All through this year, I've just gone back, and I would keep going, what do I do? Why do I do it? Am I willing to do it? I need encouragement to do it. God, give me the power to do it, because I do fear the Lord. I have a reverence for Him. I know my days are numbered. Ultimately, all these things are in His hands. So that was on New Year's Eve. Our grandkids always come for a New Year's Eve watch party. We watch the ball drop. And I was expecting 6 little grandkids any time when I found out about this kidney cancer. And then I decided I'm not going to let this spoil their holiday. And I told Heidi, our daughter, and Nathan, our son, I said, don't tell the kids about this. They can't do anything about it. Let's have our party. I've already got the whistles and the hats and everything that we need for this party. We're having a party. Tomorrow I'll deal with the other, but tonight we're having a party. And so when we went and took Heidi's kids back, I said, don't tell them. They don't need to know anything about this. What can they do? And Heidi said, we've decided to tell the girls. They're 14 and a half and 10, and Sylvia was 6. She would soon be 7. No, we're telling the girls we want them to pray, and we want them to be part of the miracle that God's going to do in your life. And so I was at the store with Sylvia, and so it's just the two of us. We're looking at frozen fish sticks, and she says, so Dee Dee, they call me Dee Dee, I hear you have cancer. I said, yeah, I do. But it's just a little teeny tiny one. She goes, okay. So I hear you're having surgery. Yep. Gonna go in. They're gonna cut that thing off, gonna get it out. I'm gonna be fine. She said, and I hear it's a miracle. I said, yes, Sylvia. It's a miracle. God is with me, and it's a miracle. And so the next week I went to the doctor. He set me up with a surgeon, and for the next 2 months I waited. We had a lot of things scheduled in our concerts and speaking, and I didn't want to interrupt that, and so and he said it wasn't a risk. So for 2 months we went ahead and fulfilled our obligations, and during that 2 months time I had a real chance to experience the reality and the comfort of the Lord, but the reality of a body that is fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderfully in that it heals, fearfully in that one little thing can really, really throw you off. But a passage that I really found comfort in is the one where Jesus was in the boat with the disciples, and the hurricane came up, the squall, it just appeared, and the wind was blowing and the waves, and it was overtaking the boat, and Jesus was asleep in the stern, and the disciples came to him and said, "Don't you care? Don't you care that we perish? Jesus, don't you care that we're drowning?" And he said 2 things to them. First, he did something. He rebuked the waves and said, "Stop it." And then he looked at them and he said, "Why are you afraid? And do you still have so little faith?" And so in the night, when I would feel so anxious, and in the night I think we're more vulnerable. It's easier to fight during the day, but at night, kind of weakened state. And I would wake up and I would be anxious. And I would go find Jesus. And I knew where he was. He was in that boat and the storm was howling. But he was asleep because he knew everything was going to be okay. And I would go find Jesus. And like a kitty cat would curl up and sleep in the crook of your arm, I curled up and I would sleep because I knew if I stayed close to Jesus, I would be okay. And so the time came for the surgery, and God proved himself faithful. In the midst of what should be complete anxiety, I had peace that passes understanding. And those passages that he had shown me months and months before about the brevity of life, how we should number our days aright, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. I gained a lot of wisdom during that time. You know, there's a saying that says, prayer changes things. Well, I think things change prayer. No one had to tell me to have a quiet time during that period of time. No one had to tell me to pray. No one had to tell me that I need to hear positive things, that I need to turn the radio off because it's too negative, that I need to be careful about what I put in my mind and my heart. No one had to tell me that, because things change how you look at life. And so I had surgery in March. My recovery was so fast, and the surgeon said, "Because you are in such good shape, I can do a form of surgery that's going to help." And I go, 10 months ago you wouldn't say I was in good shape, but 30 pounds less and hundreds of miles walked. Yeah, I was in surgery shape by the time that came around. And I look back and see God's hand was in this the whole time. That the worst thing that happened to me was not having prediabetes. It was the best thing that could happen to me, because it made me change how I ate, change how I exercised. That I realized exercise is not about muscles, it's about mobility. And if I'm going to be mobile, I got to exercise. That how I eat is not about what size pants I wear, but it's about optimum health. And so that journey I started that looked like the worst thing that could happen to me. And then the heart thing, I mean, how can you bring anything good out of having an aneurysm on your heart? If they hadn't have seen that, if they had not been looking at that, they would not have seen the cancer. And the kind of cancer I had is that you don't have symptoms until it's stage 4. So God, in His mercy, helped me by giving me something I thought was the worst thing that could have happened. Now in the fall, I'm going to go have another CAT scan, and they're going to look at the aneurysm and all that stuff. I just, I'm not going to worry about it. God has proven himself faithful. Do I start now, after all he's shown me, after all he has walked me through? Do I start now doubting him? No, I'm not going to. And so if you're watching this, and maybe you don't even understand what I'm talking about walking with Jesus and God speaking to us and guiding us and showing us that we are not alone, that we are not out here just random molecules just banging against each other and accidents and just coincidence. No, our steps are ordered if we allow them to be ordered. And every day I invite Jesus to be my guide, to help me, to order my steps, good or bad. Because what I've seen as bad things happening to me, I look back and I see this was actually a good thing. And when I went to the doctor in April, he said, I want to have a CAT scan on the heart. And I said, well, they're going to do one in October on my kidney. Let's let them do it all at the same time, because I won't have to have contrast twice. And they can look at the heart and the kidney at the same time. And he looked at me and he said, you don't understand this, do you? He said, they never should have seen your kidney when they were looking at your heart. We call that an accident. And I said, well, that's not how I roll. I don't believe in accidents. I believe God orders our steps. And he said, actually, I do too, but I have to say it's an accident. So if you're going through something, diabetes, heart disease, whatever, cancer, whatever it is, whatever has been thrown at you and you think it's the worst thing that could ever happen, I would encourage you, go to Jesus. He'll be there for you. He will not leave you or desert you. You can trust him.